Welcome to Beyond Sunday, where we have a cup of coffee, a conversation, and cultivate our relationships with one another in Christ. Beyond Sunday is a podcast ministry of Kindred Church, broadcasting to you from beautiful Orange County, California. And now, here's your host, Tom Grossi.
Well, we welcome you to this episode of Beyond Sunday, where we have a cup of coffee and a conversation. This special episode today, as we have a great guest that's joining us. She's here on a business trip. She's been a member of our church for many years, but COVID had different plans and moved her away. So I wanted to get her in for our podcast when I knew she was here for just a short period of time. And I'm excited about our guest here today. She's been a wonderful encouragement to us in our ministry, a very gifted singer, vocalist, and a very special person. And she reminds me of this quote from Walt Disney. This quote from Walt Disney, actually there's two quotes that reminds me of Kari, our guest. And the quote is, "All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." Another great quote is, "The difference between winning and losing is often found in not quitting." And when I think of Kari Yancy, I think of a young woman who has pursued her passion for theater and for voice and for music, but above all, she's kept Christ at the center of her life. And I just think that she has a wonderful testimony and a great story. And I know that you'll be interested to hear in this episode today from Kari. Kari, it's awesome to have you.
It's so good to be here.
Well, Kari, as you know, this podcast is like 30 minutes, and it's going to fly by because we could probably talk for 3 hours.
We already have.
Stuff. I know, we already have. So, Kari, tell everyone here, first of all, we know that you've been a part of Kindred for a long time, but then you had to move away, and then you're really moving away.
Yeah.
And so we're sad about that, but you're an honorary member, sort of. And so we're going to have you back again, of course, because we love you and our church loves you, and we know that you love us here at Kindred. But tell us a little bit about your family. I don't think many people know about that, and maybe where God's kind of calling you in terms of where you think you're going to end up in life in terms of location, and then we'll just get into other questions.
Okay. Well, that last part where I'm going to end up, I never know the answer to that. But yeah, so I'm very close with my family. I'm actually with my parents right now in southern Utah, which was supposed to be a 2-week visit when Disney shut down last year in March. It's so funny. I was looking at the calendar, like just looking back on time, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was that day, the last show I did, and then we out of there, and it was just going to be a quick thing, and then I just ended up staying.
Turns out to be a year or whatever.
Yeah, and it just through everything that was happening with Disney and COVID, and I started to see that God was maybe calling me away from that. I didn't really know if it was going to come back, and then our shows did close. They might come back, I don't know, but I kind of felt like God was saying that chapter was done. So I've been in southern Utah with my parents, who actually just had moved there a couple years before that from the Bay Area, which is where I grew up. Yeah.
Same with me.
Yeah, that's right. We have a lot a connection from the past. We didn't.
So, and you have a sister, and her name is
Janessa. My best friend.
Yeah, and she just got married, I believe, right?
She did, right before COVID shut everything down.
Wow.
Literally Sunday, and then I flew home, and they were already talking about like a plane that just came from somewhere in Europe, and we were all like, "What?" Like back then we were like, "What's going on?" And we're like wiping down the plane and everything. But I was like, "Oh," and then I got to work, and like Wednesday, my sister and her husband got on their honeymoon cruise, and then everything shut down right after. And so it was crazy for them because they went like the world was one day when they left on the cruise, and then they're having this great time, and they come back and everything is just like different. So weird. So yeah, I mean, that was a huge blessing that like they almost had their wedding the week after. It was scheduled going to be for the week after, and they had to move it around, and they wouldn't have gotten married if that happened. I don't know what.
And she lives in where? What city?
She lives near Austin. She lives
near
in
Austin, Texas.
Yes, which is
the great country of Texas.
Yeah. Lord willing, that's where I'll end up.
So that's kind of where you're thinking, probably.
Yeah. It just seems fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, so many young people your age have looked at California and kind of looked across the horizon, both cost of living,
right,
as well as even the politics and all of that, and so it's sort of understandable. But boy, I tell you, it's Austin's gain, but it's our loss for you to go. But again, we'll still continue to keep in touch with you. And sort of segueing off of that a little bit, tell us a little bit about how you even started at Kindred, because the first time that I heard about you was in membership.
Yeah.
And we were having a pastor's meeting, and Dave Doyle told me, he says, there's a girl that works at Disney.
Yeah.
She's a Disney princess, and she's coming into membership. She sings professionally. I'm like, all over it. You got to tell me who this is. That was several years ago. Now, and then I think your first official kind of doing a performance with us was with Steve Green for Kindred Christmas 2019, which was
cool.
a highlight personally for me. That
too.
Was an amazing day in a lot of ways. But tell us how you kind of first heard about Kindred.
Well, and we have to talk about that too, about how you ended up asking me to sing, because that was a thing God was really working through.
Wow.
That. Because I'll go back first. So I had moved out here to start working at Disney again. I had worked for them over the years while I was in college and stuff out here, and then I went away, did theater, traveled around, and then I was like, I want to go back. I want to go back to Southern California. I'd love to work for Disney.
You were in New York for a little bit, right?
Very short period of time. I was like, nah, I'm out. I need my little car and my safety zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you get spit on the subway enough times, it's like, okay, I'm done. Cockroach crawling up your leg at the airport. I'm like, yeah, that's I'm good with that. Go back to California. But so I moved out here. I was living in Buena Park at the time and going to a sweet little church out there, but I just felt like I was alone. I really needed more community. And I know this guy who's connected to Living Waters Ministry. Actually, well, he's involved in Wretched Radio with Todd Friel, if you know that. And he had come out to visit and meet with Easy. And I was like, oh my gosh, Easy's so cool. Like, I was like, can you ask him where he goes to church?
Yeah. It's not fair how cool he is.
I know. And I was so glad I got to connect with him once I came here. I was like, you're the reason I'm here. God's the reason I'm here. But yeah, so anyway, I was like, please ask him where he goes to church, because I'm looking for a really good church. And he said Kindred, so I went and I was like, this church is awesome. So got connected, and to circle back to that, how we got started, you came up to me out of nowhere, because I had been actually dealing with some anxieties and stuff that had come up just through the scrutiny that I had been under in Disney, which I loved that job, but there is a lot of scrutiny, and you can get on yourself, about perfectionism and wanting to feel like you've got to prove yourself all the time and stuff. And just a situation that happened one time when I was singing for one of my other churches, that's my church family in St. George, and I had choked, and it just really messed me up mentally. That never happened. It's just you do something like that and you're mid-song and you're like, oh my gosh. And then it gets in your head, and Satan just used that. He really did. And I had this anxiety over, while I'm performing and while I'm working full-time as a singer, I can't do worship ministry. I'll just do I'll do special needs. I'll do other things. And that was awesome. God allowed that. But it was something that I remember you came up to me after I did my membership, and you were like, hey, I want you to sing for Christmas. I want to talk to you about Christmas. And I was like, my heart, I was the fear was there, but I was like, no, this is God. I need to just say yes. I need to not be afraid of this. I need to say yes and get past this. And I remember driving home with my sister and started crying in the car. I was like, I've just kind of felt like I would never really do worship again, because I just didn't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
And she was like, that's Satan. That's him holding you back. You need to use your gifts for God. You're just hoarding them. And I was like, oh my gosh, right. So it was that Christmas thing. I mean, the fact that you came up and initiated that, because I wasn't gonna do that. I wasn't gonna come up to you and be like, hey, I want to sing. Maybe eventually I would have. I told myself eventually I would, but yeah. And just I remember sitting at the rehearsal and having those nerves of I have to prove myself. I feel like I have to prove myself. Can't mess up. And my old pastor from the first church I ever went to growing up, when my family and we first got saved, he had just called me out of nowhere, and he was like, hey, I just felt the Lord putting you on my heart tonight, and just was praying for you. And I was like, whoa, you have no idea. Like, I am dealing with some attacks from Satan right now and some anxieties, and I'm about to do this. And he's like, just sing for an audience of one. Remember who you're singing for. And that really did it. And then there was a sermon by Pastor Philip about, like, using our gifts for the Lord and giving to the Lord. And I remember thinking, like, that's my gift. I'm just hoarding it. Also, all I'm doing is sharing the gospel when I'm singing up there. It's not about me. It's not about how I sound or anything. It's just the gospel. I get to preach the gospel. So, sorry, that was really long-winded.
No, I love it. It's all great.
I told you I would be.
And I remember when we talked a little bit about that
you
when I had you do that sound check on that night, that I think you had said something like that you were really feeling that sense of anxiety and perfectionism. And I said something to you like, just be yourself.
Yeah, you were awesome throughout.
And you were yourself, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
So it would be a shame if you weren't singing for worship and singing for Christ, because that's the heart of who you are.
Yeah, to hoard that and just be like, I'm just going to use it for my, for my gain or for my career, and not give it to God. And touching
on just a little bit, because some people that are new to our church, they may know, like, now, what about Disney? Because there's a lot of new people that have been at our church. So just touch on that a little bit. Tell us what you did at Disney, what show you were in. You're at this point, you're not in it because you've kind of moved on in life a little bit. Yeah. But I think that would be interesting for people to know that.
Yeah. So my main gig there was Anna in the Frozen musical. Yeah. And I also played some other roles in Mickey and the Magical Map, which is the other show on the other side. That was a part-time thing here and there, which was fun. So we do. I work 4 days a week, and that was full-time, which is amazing for a performer to have a gig like that. That's solid, it was really a blessing. I loved what I did. It was always my dream, but at the same time, you do have that standard and that level that you always feel like you need to be at, and you kind of got to keep your position by staying at that level. And so, it's just natural to compare yourself and to have concerns about, am I living up to it? Did I take that note? Did I take that note? All the time. So that was kind of something that developed in me I never really had before. I never really felt like I had to continually prove myself in my position in a show or whatever. So that was the struggle of that. But it's a double-edged sword, because it's good because you keep the level of the show high, but you can get in your head about it. So
no, absolutely. And I think that you, for whatever this is worth, I think you manage that well. It sure seems like you do.
Thanks.
You probably feel like you struggle with that, but I think you really strike a great balance to where it's like this is the level in what God's called me to do, and I want to be as faithful to that gift as I can, and I want to be as the Scripture tells us to play and sing skillfully before the Lord. So you surely bring that, you surely do that, but yet it's not as you say just about that.
Yeah.
I remember I was at several years ago now, Keith Getty gave a great quote at the Sing Conference, and he says that music is a wonderful gift, but it makes a horrible God.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a great quote, right? Yeah. Because I think that God gives us music as a gift, but if we exalt that, and it becomes the pinnacle, it becomes what we're serving, and we're not using that as a vehicle to serve, then it becomes a horrible God. God with a small g, of course.
Anything,
anything, you could put anything in that metaphor.
True. Yeah, and the perfectionism and all that, because with live performance, like, and worship isn't performance, it's leading, but in a performance, like even at Disney, if you're only as good as your last performance, like if that's where your worth comes from, it's just torture, because you're gonna mess up, like you're gonna fall. I've fallen on my face, I've choked, I've all these things, and you have to just learn to laugh at it.
We're human.
You're human. That's kind of what makes theater exciting at the same time. It's like you don't really know what's gonna happen. The audience loves it.
Well, shifting a little off of that, but just kind of for fun, what does Kari Yancy, a Disney princess, like to do on her off time? What do you kind of like to do for fun? Do you have any hobbies? Do you have anything that's just kind of fun that you enjoy doing? I know you love your doggy.
I
know
do. My Sven. His name is Sven.
Oh, big surprise for that name, right?
That was my sister's fault. She said I had to do that. She doesn't even really like Frozen that much. So I was like, if she says I have to do it, then I have to do it.
That's cool.
What else? I mean, my job was so fun. That's why I loved it. I feel like I have two modes. It's like ball gown princess, like make believe, or just like at home chilling, sweatpants.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like for me, it's just being around people I love and you know, not like big parties or anything. Just
well, and one thing I've noticed that you're doing, which I think is a really cool idea, is your princess parties that you're doing.
I never stopped.
Tell us a little bit. I mean, in so many ways, you're so wonderful with children, and I think that's a ministry in and of itself. Is because, you know, as kind of Walt Disney says, we really never grow up. There's always a kid inside in every one of us. And so tell us a little bit about kind of why you started doing that and kind of how that goes. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, well, it was actually it's something I did a long time ago when I was like 14. I started this little business doing princess parties, and that was back before anybody was really doing it. I was just like, I want to do that. I want to get dressed up and sing for the kids and like do a little show at birthday parties. And so had all the costumes made. My amazing mom and my yaya, my grandma, who's now passed, they would make some of my dresses together. Like, they figured out how to do it. It was amazing. Wow. So I had this little business going through high school, and then when I went back to St. George for COVID, people started reaching out to me. Hey, do you dress up? Like, my niece, her birthday got canceled because of COVID. Could you do like a FaceTime or something? I was like, that's an idea. So I got my old costumes out, kind of updated them a little bit, and I started making FaceTime calls, doing Zoom parties, and now I do in person as well. But it's really fun, and it's that part that I always love, which is the interaction with the kids. Even the FaceTime, it's just like, it's so special just to get
kids
one-on-one.
Kids jumping up and down behind.
And you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes I've had kids run and lock themselves in a room, and their mom's just like on the phone like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I know. It happens. It happens.
It's like, Elsa's here. What do I do?
It's so, I mean, imagine meeting your favorite, like having your favorite celebrity just like on FaceTime. You're like
all of a sudden Ariel's at your door.
Yeah. So, but it's been a really fun little side thing that I do here and there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Kari, I know the time is really flying. I would love to just get from you, and you could just take this anywhere you want. But, there's plenty of musicians that watch this podcast, and then there's just members of our congregation that aren't necessarily, don't consider themselves as musicians. And they say, they'd love to hear stories, and that's what the feedback that we've gotten in these podcasts is. People just love to hear life stories and hear about people's lives and love to see the human touch. Yeah. As our church continues to grow, there's a lot of new people and a lot of new people that don't know even the names of some folks that are on our platform, and that was kind of really the whole desire behind this podcast. And you've been really wonderful with this. What would be neat for us to kind of hear maybe is, what's kind of what maybe could be some advice that you might have for someone who's either considering singing or getting involved in theater or getting involved in music, or maybe just something that, because you're in transition right now, your heart's kind of in transition and in moving to Texas most probably. So tell us what either God's kind of teaching you in that, something that you kind of learned along the way, or it could be musical advice, or it could just be life advice. A lot of at your age and stage, there's plenty of people that are exactly where you're at. They're your age, they're your stage, they're looking across their horizon of their life going, I'm think I want to go there, but there's a lot of question marks, and that's kind of frightening. Anyway, just tell us anything that's kind of going on there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as advice, I mean, something that I remember struggling with, like when I graduated college, and I had kind of come across this like crossroads where I was really rededicating my life to Christ and going, okay, I have my dreams, I have my goals. I wanted to do Disney, I wanted to do Broadway, I wanted to do all these things, and then God was really convicting me of like, is are you doing that for my glory? Like, do you want to do these things for my glory, or do you want to do them because you want Kari's glory? And I remember like having this kind of moment of like, do I just not even pursue these things at all? Like, is that not what God wants? And I really kind of struggled over that, and I spoke to a really wonderful friend. His name's Steve Lively. Have we talked about Steve Lively before? Amazing singer, Christian, and he talked to me on the phone, and I was like, I don't know what I should do. Like, should I go into missions? I don't know. I wasn't, but I was like, what do I do? And he was like, hey, God puts a desire and a talent and stuff in you for a reason. It's not always just so that you push it to the side and you don't use it, So, but you can use it for him. That could be if he puts you there, that could be your mission field. And so it was kind of amazing that I still got to pursue. I still went for those dreams. I went for what I was hoping to do, but there was a lot I couldn't do in that field either, obviously, just with how worldly it can be and stuff. So you have to know where your boundaries are, especially if you're going to get into theater and stuff, but in the arts. But just knowing that, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to pray about this. If it's in the Lord's will, I'm going to keep going. And then where God has me is my mission fields. And I really felt like it was amazing after that, like, realization and kind of dedicating my career and wherever he took me to that, how he sent me to different places. He sent me to St. George to perform there. He sent me to Chicago. He sent me to Disney. And there are so many amazing gospel experiences I got to have, sharing with people and seeing God work in where he placed me. So I don't know, that's kind of a long-winded way to say, if your dreams are of God, if they're not something that's a sinful thing, you got to make sure that. But, just seek him throughout it. And then if he opens the door, let him use you in it, especially in the arts. So that's a tough one because it is a very dark world. So, we need light there.
Yeah, to be salt and light in that industry is
really anywhere.
Is a major undertaking every day. I would assume. Well, as I hear your testimony on that, Kari, it kind of again it comes back to that scripture that the man makes his plans, but the Lord orders his steps. And it kind of feels like we make plans, and they're well intended, but God's the one who sort of orders those steps, that not only gets them in a particular order, but hones that path in a particular direction. And we see that in you. I see that in you. And you've had to pay a price for following Christ.
Oh yeah.
Touch just a little on that hasn't been easy for you. I mean, I think in some ways I've served in ministry for a long time, and I've worked for the church for a long time. And in a sense, you kind of are sheltered a little bit from, quote, the big bad real world.
Yeah.
Because you basically go to work with a bunch of Christians and pastors.
So nice.
Yeah. And just in the fairly short time that we have left, just you don't need to go into any kind of details if you don't want to, but just tell us how that challenge was for you to be in a world, especially in a world of professional theater.
Yeah.
That is generally not comfortable with conservative values, for sure, and a conservative definition of family,
right,
and a biblical worldview is clearly non-existent.
Yeah.
So how was that for you?
Yeah, well, that was a tough balance throughout. I really did feel like God had placed me there for a reason. And I loved the people I worked with, and there were certain times when I got to have conversations with different people of different lifestyles, and I always loved them no matter what, and I always wanted to make clear that, even if I don't agree or believe with the way you live your life or whatever, we're both sinners before God, and that's where, and I bring it back to the gospel whenever I can, because I still love you. I still care about you. And you try to give the truth and grace and love and just live your life as a witness, an example, So that was the way I tried to live in that world. There were definitely a lot of struggles. As far as career-wise, just a lot that I couldn't do to climb the ladder, a lot of roles I wouldn't take and stuff. And I had to trust God that, I wanted God to be my manager. I didn't want to make it to the top doing it the world's way, because I knew very early on that wasn't going to be success for me, wouldn't be worth it in that way. But yeah, as far as just my values and stuff, it's in the past year, so it's been a lot harder with that, and pro-life, and I'm bold about it, and that got me under a lot of fire in the past year or so. But when a lot of the attacks came, a lot of other people came out of the woodwork.
Absolutely.
And I felt confident that I had loved those people that were attacking me. I had loved them. I'd shown them love up till that point, so I could be, okay, they're going to think what they're going to think. They're going to say what they're going to say. I've lived my life out to show that I love these people, and I can't do anything more than that. And then I built up just like this amazing group of friends and real like-minded family, like, that came out of the woodwork in the past year when I lost a lot of friends and a lot of people that I thought I was close to. And then those people came in, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are the ones. These are the friends that stick through thick and thin. Like, this is it. And it made me stronger. And it it helps. It does. We're all going to go through some level of persecution. That's what God promises. But He's with you through the end. I never felt alone. I never felt betrayed or anything by.
Well, Kari, it's a blessing to have you on the podcast, and I knew that this would be a great conversation, because we could probably go for hours.
I know.
But I think you've encouraged people, and you've shared your heart, you've shared your story, and those are things that people love and enjoy about you, and we're proud of you. I'm proud of you. And you always have a home here if Texas gets boring. We will miss you greatly. But I knew I wanted to do kind of a special podcast of having you in when you were here for just a short period of time, get you in on the podcast, because you've been a blessing to us in the past, and hopefully we'll find times in the future to do so. Now, I have, I think, the easiest question I've ever asked you, and that is this coffee that we're drinking.
Yeah, this coffee I haven't drank at all.
This coffee cup. That's your coffee cup, by the way.
I love it.
So tell us, every guest, they've given us their favorite coffee or tea order. So what's yours?
I told you I'd save this joke for the podcast.
Do it.
And everyone's probably heard it before, but I like a little coffee with my creamer. So I'm a creamer girl. I'm not a coffee snob by any means, but I just have to have creamer and a lot of it, and I know it's horrible for you. And
sprinkle some coffee grounds on it.
I like it to taste like dessert. And I try to go dairy-free when I can, so I do almond milk, vanilla.
Very nice.
Very nice.
I've kind of gotten into the chai lattes lately.
Fancy.
I think it's because it's like soothing on the voice a little bit. But I'm basically just black coffee. But I kind of like that.
Yeah, so. I know it's not good for me, but
it's okay.
Can't live without it.
That's okay. Well, it's been a joy to have Kari with us, and I know that you've enjoyed this episode of Beyond Sunday, and I hope that you'll continue, look backwards or forwards on the playlist, and that you'll watch many of our episodes of Beyond Sunday for this season 1. We hope that we'll be able to have a season 2. My name is Tom Grossi. I'm your host for this podcast, and I want to encourage you to find us on any of your podcast apps that you can download and both hear the audio and video, as well as find us a link on the church website at www.kindredchurch.org, or you can find us on our YouTube channel. Just search for Kindred Church Anaheim Hills. It's a joy to have Kari with us. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond Sunday. God bless, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining this episode of Beyond Sunday, brought to you by Kindred Church. For updates and new episodes, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Kindred Church Anaheim Hills, or join us on Facebook or on our website at www.kindredchurch.org.